what really draws me into you, aside from being a keyboardist, like myself, man, it's just the production side of what you've been doing and the artists that you've produced. So, like, man, you know, he's still doing his jazz funk fusion thing on his own. But, man, seriously, when I hear your production for other artists, George, I don't even know it's you half the time. It's so versatile, and the styles, like, man, I had no idea that you produced that song, because I always looked at credits. When I was a young kid, I mean, I'm always opening up the CDs and records, look who's producing, and to see your name across some of the R&B tracks that I listen to, I was like, oh, man, you're just unstoppable, that versatility, and that's what I try to implement and kind of grab your attributes as a producer and as a musician, kind of incorporate in my own style where I could be versatile and follow your direction and map of production.
Well, you know, for me, I actually decided that, you know, I make my own records, and I didn't want to make my records for the artists that I produce. So I wasn't going to take Jeffrey Osborne or Anita Baker and try to make them in my image.
Right.
I would try to take them and find out what's best about them or challenge them to be the best they can be and create their own statement. Because in the long run, I think the one thing that sets one artist apart from the next is individuality, musical individuality. You got to find out what that personality is and bring it out. That's the responsibility of a producer.
Right.
It's changed in recent years, where the producer became almost more important than the artist in many ways, because the producer did a track, the artist came and sang on it, and that's the end of it. And so all these artists began to sound the same because they sound like the producer.
I agree.
As opposed to the artist.
Right.
And so I didn't take that as a model. I said, no, if I work with, you know, Miles Davis got to sound like Miles Davis. If I work with Barry Manilow, he got to sound like Barry Manilow. Jeffrey Osborne, whoever I was working with, Denise Williams, they all had to have. I tried to find out what makes them tick and what makes them special and bring that out, and found out it's my responsibility. And so that's why a lot of my productions don't sound the same.
Man, you're definitely doing a good job on it. My last couple episodes, I touched on the subject of building that artist-producer relationship between the artists. And, you know, it is, I feel, just listening to the music and seeing how many songs and versus artists that are out there, I just kind of feel like it's a revolving door in the studio at times. You know, just that time and effort and that creativity is just not one sometimes with the artist. You know, you'll have a great track, it's good, but does it fit that artist?
Right.
You know, is it tailored for that Anita Baker? It's like, no, I'm pulling that from Jeffrey Osborne. It doesn't fit Anita. You know,
well, it's just like I told Everett for the record that I'm working on with him right now. I said, man, I do not want to do one song with you that you don't absolutely love, that you think you can go out there and tear up live,
right,
that you can play, that represents you. I don't want this record to represent me.
Right.
This record has to represent the artist.
Right.
Because I got to make my own records, and I got enough to do.
Exactly.
So, but it's a different way of looking at things.
Right.
And but for me, I think it's the right way to do it.
That's right. No, I agree. You know, but one thing I do notice, you know, with the George Duke signature, I mean, I do notice that funk as your foundation on a lot of work that you do. Yeah. Even on some of the slower ballads, I still got that bop to it. You know what I mean? And that's definitely another thing that really stands out with me, with you. You know, is that funk background. Even like the tracks of Reach For It, Dookie Stick. I mean, those tracks, man. That's those high tracks that stick with me as a player, and because there's so much room, and it just takes your creativity to another level as far as funk. I mean, it's funk, but there's still room for adding your chops and progressions. You know what I mean? So it's just real inspired when I hear those tracks.
Yeah, I like to take the funk and just let it go where it will.
Right.
You know, because I have a lot of background in jazz, and so I take the straight up and down thing of the funk. And you know, take the linear thing of jazz and put them together.
That's right.
You know, and make it work. For me, man, you know, that funk is all about, really, about the blues feeling. You know, it's an Afrocentric thing. It's an interesting thing. I actually call, I have a word for it called the ancient source. I actually wrote a song about it on one of my albums called The Ancient Source. And that, to me, is the thing that makes this stuff work, because it's actually a spiritual thing.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's just like, and just something you can't quite put your finger around it, but you know it when you hear it because it's got that thing on it.
Right, that That's right.
It don't mean a thing if it ain't
got that thing. That's right. All day long.
That's what I'm saying. Whatever it is.
Right.
So it's got to have that ancient source, you know, and that's available for everybody to tap into it if they want to.
Well, I definitely did it, man, and you're definitely the gateway I used when I produce and compose my music. You know, it's one thing when I find myself when I'm producing an artist for R&B, and you know, it's definitely a hot track. The creativity's there, but it's nothing like when I create my own instrumentals. I don't feel like I have that box. You know what I mean? I'm just grooving, and the music just kind of takes me there on its own. And sometimes it's not really structured enough for an artist to sing around it, but it's just a great track again, just because I have no boundaries again when I'm doing my jazz, my smooth jazz stuff anyways.
Yeah, people ask me that sometimes, but I actually don't feel that constricted when I'm writing for other people, because I really try to keep them in mind. It's almost like when I'm doing a track that has, you know, bass and drums, and I'm trying to get a real drum sound or a real bass sound, or even a guitar, which is even more difficult to do, and you know, in certain brass instruments, I actually put myself in that head, say, okay, now I'm a trumpet player. I'm not a piano player playing a trumpet part. I'm a trumpet player.
That's right.
And I try to breathe like a trumpet player, and the whole bit to make the part more realistic, so I actually become another person. And I think in some respects, that's the key to putting those tracks together, if you're doing electronic tracks.
Right.
You know, is to actually become another musician. You know, because if you're the same guy playing drums, playing bass, the same musician playing all those instruments, I'm not saying it can't work, but I think it takes on another avenue if you can take on another personality. It's like acting.
Right, exactly.
You know, and you actually, if you start thinking like a bass player, your parts are going to sound more like a regular bass player.
Right.
If that's what you're going for.
Exactly. No, I agree. And, you know, I think having that keyboard background just as a keyboardist allows the composer to think like another instrument. You know, if you're a piano player, I think piano players play like a piano player. You know, they don't hear the bass parts or the strings or the brass or, you know, just a lot of lead synths, you know, because their playing style and their dexterity is like a piano player. But I think when you get into the keyboard aspect of it, the sounds just kind of make you create a little bit better than, you know.
Yeah, Stanley Clark used to talk to me about that all the time. He used to hear guys play bass parts. He said, well, they're not playing like a bass player. They're playing this like a keyboard player.
Right.
Or something else. So,
right.
You know, we've had that conversation before.
How was it working with Stanley, man? I know you guys had a huge relationship and a long relationship coming up in the game, composing and producing together and touring.
Yeah, well, Stanley's like my younger brother. You know, he's an incredible musician, man. Absolutely incredible musician. That is as deep musically as I am.
Yeah.
And can go, you know, play everything from classical music to funk and love it all. And so he's been much like me. That's who he is.
Right.
We're the same kind of people, though his background's a little different than mine. He's a little more on the rock side. I'm a little more on the funk church side.
Right.
And so you put the two of us together, and it tends to work out pretty well. You know, so we've done, I saw him in Europe, and we were hanging out, and we sent emails back and forth to each other all the time. So that's like my buddy.
Man, I got a couple of Stanley Clark's albums, even from his younger years, man, and the stuff that he did for the Boys in Hood soundtrack was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Bad boy.
Oh, yeah. Chop, man. He's the guy on the bass, you know what I mean? Now, I know you and El Jarreau did some stuff together, man, and one on the Hearts Horizon sound CD.
Yes.
Man, the track, believe it or not, the favorite track on that album for me is More Love.
Oh, really?
Oh, George, that track there, man, the chord progression that you're using, the flow of the track, I love that song, man. That is the track.
That's a very well-written song by a guy named Spud Murphy, I think was his name.
Really?
I think that was his name. Yeah, it was a guy who used to write for, if I'm correct, if that's right, his name. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not Spud Murphy. It's Jack Siegel.
Okay.
Is his name. And I think he used to write songs for Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and all of that. And he sent this song in, and I started listening to it, and I said, Al, you need to listen to this song, because lyrically,